Hello, it's Karen Burniston here with my monthly Designer Challenge video. The theme this month is congratulations, and obviously a graduation card is perfect for this time of year. My thought was to take the bottom tier of the cake pop-up and use it as a stage for a fun graduation scene. And you can check out all of our die designs at KarenBurniston.com. I find it such a bonus when pattern paper is beautiful and can do a lot of the decorating work for me, and these two pieces from 49 in Market are going to work perfectly. For the background of my card, I'm going to make sure that I get this section down here, plus that paper is so thick that it can be a single layer card. I don't necessarily have to back it with cardstock. And the card I'm making is just a standard top fold A2, so 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches scored in the middle for folding. And the only decorating I will do is to brush the edges with ink, since it does have a white core, and then to use my ruler and a gel white pen to just add a detail line around the card, making sure I avoid the flowers. So I didn't need to add any line along the bottom because it was completely obscured by flowers. And then on the wood grain paper, I'm just cutting a strip that's big enough for the largest die from the cake pop-up die set. This is going to be the one I use for my stage, and I'm looking just at the long strip part of the die. That's the portion of this first cut that's going to show in the finished card. So that's the one I care about. And I've chosen that dark wood grain to be the front of my stage. So I'll just use some temporary removable tape to hold that in place while I run that through my die cutting machine. Now you can use any die cutting machine that can accommodate a wafer thin die, and today I am using my Spellbinders Platinum 6. So this die cuts half of the bottom tier of the cake, so I will have to repeat this process and cut it a second time. Okay, once I have two of these pieces, then I can start the folding, and the score lines have been made by the die, so you'll be able to see them. And I'll start first with the 3 folds that are on the side of the cake or the stage. There's a little tapered tab on the side and then 2 other folds. Then there's also a fold at the bottom of the cake, so that folds under. In fact, every fold in this piece is a mountain fold, which means you're folding away from yourself. Now across the bottom here, there are 3 sections. You may have to break those apart if your die hasn't completely cut through. And then you're going to do the turn downs on the sides, and then the last little fold will be that center section. There's another little tab at the bottom of it, so then you fold that under. So everything is a mountain fold, and you'll end up with half of your cake tier or stage at this point. And then I will repeat that to get all the folds in the second half of the stage or cake tier. I'll do this a little faster now. Again, all of the mountain folds, just going around and pinching them all to the back. Now, since I am not planning on putting any other tiers on my cake, I need to make myself a template to be able to cover up all of the mechanism in that bottom tier so that the top of the stage will be solid. So all I did is just cut another large cake tier out of a scrap piece of cardstock and trim out just that half hexagon that represents the top of the stage. On my leftover wood grain paper, I sliced it between 2 boards, and then I'm going to put that paper back to back. Then when I hold my template right up along the edge, I can cut through both layers and get those 2 half hexagons to be the top of my stage. Glue is a good choice for adding those half hexagons to the top of the cake tier. That way you can avoid the slot with your adhesive. I'm using my Lineco pH neutral adhesive in my fine tip bottle, and we do sell both of those items on our website. So that's just going to make the top of my stage solid while still allowing to have all of that mechanism that's in the cake tier underneath. So you can see I've still got my little tab in the middle that I can use to attach it to the card. Then I'm going to repeat that process again with the other half of the cake and add the other half hexagon. Now, since I did trim through 2 layers with my template, it's possible that one of them is a little off. If that happens, like right here, I'm a little bit over the edge, I just want to go in and trim that back to fit. This is the back half of my stage, and I know that I want to add another vertical support for an embellishment. So right now, I need to go in and add a slot. So on the back of the piece, right up next to the fold line of that little tab that's coming down, I want to go in and just add a narrow slot using my craft knife that will allow me to slide a clear support down through that slot and attach it to that vertical edge that's going to come down in the finished stage. A great thing for a strong clear support would just be a thin strip of a blister packaging, and that's what I'm using today. I do tend to like a good red line or tacky tape, a nice strong tape. I love dry adhesives when I'm working with clear plastic. It just tends to work a little bit better than glue. So I slide my clear support down through the slot that I made and then into that tape that's on that vertical section of that drop-down tab. Okay, now I'm going to attach my two halves of the stage together. So I'll use my red line or tacky tape again for this, and I'm just adding it now to the turn-down section of one half of the stage. Then I would basically just kiss those two together. But as I remove that tape and make it sticky, I'm going to sink in another clear support in between those two layers. That's the one in the center that will stick up that I'll be able to add my graduate and my greeting to. So then however it's easier, I've decided flipping it over is easier to line it up. I just want to line up those two sections of the stage and get them pressed together. And then what will happen is that clear support is basically sandwiched between them, so it will stick up in the air in the middle, and then I've got the back support in the back. The small tabs are used to connect the sides of the cake tier or stage to the other side. So I just add some strong adhesive in one of those tapered tabs, then I can collapse the tier down so that I can get those two to come next to each other and then attach them. So same thing on the other side, a little glue in the tapered tab, fold it under, and then just press it to the side of the cake on the other side. Okay, so just pinching those sides for a second to make sure that the glue sets up, and then I can open that up and you can see now I have that hexagon stage. And the last thing I need to do is just attach the tabs underneath the stage. Those are what connected to the card. So I need to have one tab overlapping the other tab and attached together. So the easiest way to do that is just to add some adhesive to, I usually do the longer tab. Then I just collapse it down, lay it on the table, and then I can fold the smaller tab over and into that glue. So it's a good idea to do this in that closed position. That way you get perfect placement, but it's just a matter of some glue in the center of the longer tab, then fold over the shorter one and into that glue. And that is the completed assembly of our single tier cake or stage. You can see how it's going to look when the card is open. So to attach it inside the card, you need to flatten it again. And then that way that bottom edge will be visible and you can use that to line up with the card. And where the adhesive goes is actually in those two tabs that we just glued to each other. So I like to call that the little T section because it looks like a capital T. And you can put adhesive all over that T section. And then for placement, you use the center of the cake as a guide to make sure that it's right down in the center fold of the card. And then you can look right to left to slide it one way or the other until you get it centered. In my case, I have those white lines that I drew on the card, so that really helps me make sure that I got a good centering to the cake. Okay, so then I can flip the card over and open it up, and that will give me access to the other little T tab section. So once again, my glue goes in that section, and then I just close the card and give it a good press until that glue sets up. Once the glue sets up, the pop-up will be working. I'll carefully open it the first time just to make sure. But you can see there how it's going to make that hexagon-shaped stage. I've got my two clear supports sticking up in the air. They are far too long, but that's fine. I can just trim them now. And I'll trim them both just to fit in the card. That way I'll know that I cannot put my embellishments any higher than the top of my supports if I want them hidden by the card. But I know that I will be trimming down the forward one even smaller. Okay, the stage needs a graduate, so for today's card I will use the owl from the Feathered Animals die set and then embellish with the graduation outfit from Tiny Accessories 2. The first thing I did is just assembled the owl in the usual manner. If you need a video tutorial for that, you will find it on the product page on our website. Go to KarenBerniston.com, search in the search box for Feathered Animals, it will come right up. On the back of the owl, you can see the assembly pieces. There is a piece for the legs and feet, as well as a piece to back the eye sockets. Now normally you'd never see those, but since we're using a clear support and its top fold, you will actually see a little bit of that owl as the card is opening and closing. So just to make that a little cleaner, I went ahead and cut the owl again and kept the round circles that would normally fall out of the eyes. Then I add glue to everything and just line that up and glue that to the back of the owl. And that'll just make it a little cleaner on the back as the card is opening and closing. And then I'll just add a little ink around the edges. To dress the owl for graduation, I'll turn to Tiny Accessories 2, and there is a graduation cap and tassel. So I've cut the cap out of black and the tassel out of maroon, just a little spot of glue in the little round part of the tassel to glue it in the center of the cap. And then just a little spot of glue at the top of the owl to add the graduation cap, and I also added the round glasses that come included with the Feathered Animals die set. Now this owl graduate is super cute. I could just add the diploma under her wing and be done, but I wanted to show another technique, which is how you can make a custom gown for your graduates. Now I couldn't include a gown in the set because all of our animals kind of have different body shapes and types and different hands and locations. So I'm going to show you how easy it is for you to make the gown to fit the animal. So first I just tape the animal to the cardstock that I want to use, making sure that there is some extra cardstock below the animal. What I want the die to do is to cut for me the neckline and the sleeves, but I don't want it to cut the bottom half of the animal, so I need to stop the cutting pad short. And that's just going to be a matter of experimenting depending on which animal you're using. You'll figure out where that cutting pad needs to stop so that you have enough that you can get sleeves, but none of the bottom half of the animal where you want to turn it into a gown. And don't worry if the die hasn't cut all the way to the base of the paw or the wing or whatever animal you're doing, because you're cutting sleeves anyway. So I don't need to get all the way down to the tip of the wing. I just need to get enough to get it started. And then I'm just using my scissors to basically cut from the bottom up at an angle in a nice long, ridiculously long, kind of gown-shaped A-line skirt, right? Because then I can use the animal itself to decide how long it needs to be. So I just place that now over the top of my animal. I can look at it from the side and figure out where I need to hem the gown. So then just a quick check to make sure that I can see feet at the bottom of the gown and wings sticking out of my sleeves. Looks great. So now all I need to do is work on the neckline. So for all of the animals, what I do is just start right at the shoulder and just cut down at a V, basically put a V-neck into the gown. So something like this. And then I just add glue to the back of my custom gown, and it will fit, of course, perfectly on the owl because the upper part of it was cut with the die, so it'll fit right over the top of the wings to add those sleeves. And then for the owl, if you want her to hold something, then you have to clip the base of the wing to be able to lift it up to add in that diploma. Okay, she is ready to get on stage. So to do that, I'm just going to add some mini glue dots to the section of her that's going to hit that forward platform. So that would be my right, her left on those mini glue dots, just enough to hold her on there solid. And I'll just give everything a good check and make sure it closes up nicely, and it does. Okay, so then I can cut away the upper part of that clear platform. I just needed enough to hold the owl on there and the greeting. And I chose Way to Go from Word Set 8, and I added a second Way to Go cut out of black cardstock behind the first one at a little bit of an angle so it would look like a drop shadow. And I had this bad idea, which was I would cut the plastic lower down because it would be less noticeable, but really it became more noticeable and a little jagged. So I decided to disguise those two edges with hearts, and I just used the hearts that came out of Tiny Accessories 2. I used our numbers set for the graduation year, and I have those connected to each other using another piece of that plastic so that it'll be a nice solid piece that I can attach to the top of my back platform. So it's really only the 9 that is connected to the platform, and I just made sure that it didn't go any higher than the top of the platform since I'd already pre-cut that to fit the card. I dressed up the front of the stage using the Cake Trims die set, an optional add-on to the cake. For the card front, I kept it simple. Just 3 stacks of the congrats word from the same word set, and then another one of my graduation caps. I like this technique, using that bottom tier of the cake as a stage for a graduation card. And of course you can customize the graduate with colors and with whichever animal that you would choose. And the finished card is just a standard A2. You will find all sorts of information in the description box, including a link to the blog post where you will find pictures of this card as well as links to all of the team's cards. You will also find supply links in both places. Thanks for watching. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com where you can find out information about purchasing these dies as well as links to all my other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.